Hey folks, today I've got an absolutely nutty story to share that involves comedian Paul Lynde, where he watched a friend fall to his death right before his very eyes. Like I said, this one is absolutely crazy and 100% true, so hold tight and give me just a minute or so to talk about Paul, and then I'll get to the details about what happened during the early morning hours of July 18, 1965. Growing up, I remember Paul best as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched and as a frequent guest on Donnie and Marie's variety show. And of course, his now legendary residency in the center square on the classic TV game show Hollywood Squares. Truth be told, I don't believe there was ever a sharper wit on that show than Paul's. Sadly, all of that success never really translated into a hit TV show of his very own. And during the later years of Paul's life, there was something there that you could almost see in his eyes. They had, without a doubt, seen their fair share of sadness that comes with not being able to be your authentic self all of the time. So when I stumbled across this article not so long ago, I knew that I needed to learn more about what had actually transpired. I mean, it's not every day that a person witnesses a friend accidentally fall 8 floors to their death. The actor who met this extremely sad and grisly demise was an inspiring young feller by the name of James Davidson. At the time of the accident, he was 24 and Paul was 39, and they were spending the night in San Francisco with plans to hit the town hard before returning to their room to recover. The scene of the accident was the Sir Francis Drake Hotel. It has since been renamed, but for the purposes of recounting what happened during the early hours of July 18th, I'm just going to call it the Drake. So Paul and James had a room on the 8th floor of the Drake. After both arriving back to the hotel around 2 a.m., not sure why, but Paul went up first, and then James, escorted by a security guard, came up a few minutes later. After being dropped off, James wandered over to the open hotel room window, and looking straight at Paul, he said, "Watch me do a trick." Paul assumed that there must have been a large ledge or something that prankster James was crouching down on as he slipped out of the window. But then he heard James yell, "Help me, I'm slipping." Paul rushed over to the window and could see James hanging on for dear life. The ledge hadn't been large enough to stand on, but James had managed to grab hold of it. Paul quickly reached down and grabbed his friend's wrists, and James frantically tried to pull himself up and swing a leg back into the window. As James continued swinging, Paul could feel him start to slip out of his hand, and he yelled for James to grab his neck, but it was all too late, and Paul saw James fall approximately 80 feet to his death. Despite having appeared in a couple of films, coverage of this horrific accident was relatively minimal. While the story hit most newspapers a day later on July 19th, it had pretty much been forgotten by the time James was laid to rest a few days later. And Paul soldiered on. His career, while definitely noteworthy, was always something of a personal dissatisfier for him. He yearned for the kind of fame that would forever elude him. Despite his own personal misery throughout his career, Paul Lynde found ways to make many others smile. And James, well, like I said, his career is something of a footnote in the world of TV and movie entertainment. Here he is, top left corner, in an uncredited role in the 1965 movie Harlow. But let's not forget that the loss of James was mourned by his family in Grand Island, Nebraska. I'm sure it was just a horrible, horrible thing for them. He left behind a grieving mother and father, as well as a brother and sister. Losing someone that young can be tough. Some families never recover from that type of loss, especially when it is so senseless as this tragic accident was. Huge thanks to all those folks who've clicked on that little join button and become supporting channel members. Along with advanced access to videos and exclusive live streams, they have my complete appreciation. And to everyone who watched this video all the way to the very end, thank you so very much. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or maybe even subscribe to the channel. I talk about music, movies, and mostly TV from decades gone by. You know, the good stuff.